Chapter 151. Sister, Sister. It's time for dinner. Xiao Lin stretched out her little paws and giggled at her sister enthusiastically. Wei Ziqin stuffed the little foodie into Qiao Zhongbong's arms and walked quickly to Aba's side. She looked at the talismans in Aba's hands in shock. Jojo, this is? The 2 storage talismans you gave me last time were? Was it you? I drew them. Aba nodded. She didn't intend to keep it a secret from them. Since they happened to see it, she might as well tell them about the talismans. That way, her mother wouldn't treat the 2 storage talismans like treasures, counting the number of times she could use them and not daring to store them. Wei Ziqin's face was full of disbelief. The 2 storage talismans that Jojo had given her were a gift from the expert who had saved her. One had a large space and one had a small space. One could store 100 times, the other could store 200 times. It was filled with all kinds of utensils, food, clothes, and so on that she had tidied up the house. She couldn't bear to use them. But now, Jojo was saying that she had drawn the storage talismans. Aba rubbed her little nose and looked at her mother a little embarrassedly. She had casually told a lie that the storage talismans were a gift from the Crown Prince. Now, she was exposed. Ahem. Mom, these storage talismans are actually quite easy to draw. Look. She took out a purple talisman from her waist and took out 30 blue storage talismans. These can store 200 times and have 2 cubic meters of space. Aba's mother was dumbfounded. Her father was also petrified. Jojo, did you draw these storage talismans the whole night? Qiao Zhongbong snapped out of his daze and immediately put on a solemn expression as he looked at his daughter. Although it's indeed very impressive that you can draw 30 storage talismans in one night, you're still young after all and still growing. Don't be so impatient in the future. You need to rest and sleep, okay? Aba, actually, I drew more than 200 talismans in one night. She didn't dare to say this to her father. She just nodded her head in agreement. Qiao Zhongbong had seen storage talismans in his sect before, which was a treasure comparable to a mystic cultivator's inner world. Thus, his knowledge was much higher than Wei Ziqin's, and he knew that this type of storage talisman was very rare. Moreover, Qiao Zhongbong was extremely clearly aware that talisman techniques had been passed down from generation to generation since the ancient times until now, and many talisman techniques had been drowned in the torrent of history and had been lost for a long time. For example, not everyone knew how to draw storage talismans. It was unknown whether there were any talisman patrician families in Guanlon City who knew how to draw storage talismans. In any case, he only knew that a storage talisman was a highly sought-after item, whether it was placed in an auction or in the black market. However, at this moment, when his daughter acted like a nouveau riche and his wife, giving each of them 10 talismans, Qiao Zhongbong's hand holding the storage talisman trembled slightly, and his eyes were filled with an expression that said, "Am I dreaming?" These 10 talismans are for second uncle. Aba stuffed another 10 blue talismans into his father's hands. He then picked up the blue and yellow summoning talismans and looked at them. Finally, he put away the blue talisman and planned to open a yellow talisman. Jojo, what's this? Qiao Zhongbong's agitated emotions calmed down slightly. His gaze was fixed on the yellow summoning talisman in Aba's hand. This beginner-level yellow summoning talisman was the demonstration talisman that had just fallen out of the golden talisman Jade Tome. Aba thought for a moment before taking the yellow talisman and walking out of the building. He said as he walked, "This is a summoning talisman." Chapter 152. She might summon a large animal like a jackal, wolf, tiger, or leopard later. When Xiao Mu walked downstairs, she bumped into the girl Xiaoyao, who approached her with a grin. "Master, madam, little master, breakfast is ready." The little foodie lay in her father's arms, and her eyes lit up when she heard that. "Big sister, breakfast." Aba paused and turned back to say to Xiaoyao, "You guys go ahead first. I'll come to the parlor to eat later." "No, no." Qiao Zhongbong shook his head. "It's rare to see a legendary summoning talisman. How can father not stay and take a look?" Wei Ziqin also expressed her willingness to watch. Xiao Yao, on the other hand, was a little dumbfounded. She looked at her little master and asked in astonishment, "Summoning talisman? Was there something wrong with her ears? Why did she hear Master mention a summoning talisman?" From what she knew, this talisman was a talisman patrician family in Guanlon City that had been treasured for generations and was on the verge of extinction. The entire patrician family only had one summoning talisman, and it was worshipped in the ancestral hall all day long like a divine object. "All right then." Arbor nodded. "Father, Mother, don't be nervous. The summoned animals and plants should listen to orders." Actually, she didn't have any confidence when she said that. She had never summoned any animals or plants from beginning to end, so who knew what the hell she would summon? What if it was a ferocious beast? She didn't want to scare Shaolin into crying with her loud voice. "Cough, Father, Mother, carry Shaolin and walk further away." Arbor held the yellow talisman and reminded them. Wei Ziqin thought that there might be danger, so she nodded and pulled Xiao Zhongbong back with her. She even exhorted, "Jojo, be careful. Run if you see something wrong." Arbor looked down at the yellow summoning talisman in her hand. These talismans were all made by her, and the talisman energy contained her aura. To her, opening the talisman was too easy. She didn't even need to drip her blood on the talisman. She just stretched out 2 fingers and wiped the talisman. After the talisman broke and the yellow light burst out, everyone tried their best to open their eyes and look at the garden. They were all very nervous. Xiao Mu, who was anticipating the appearance of a ferocious beast, was already in a fighting stance, waiting for the legendary ferocious beast to pounce on her and let her beat it into submission. However, a shrill cry rang in her ears, so shrill that her small body trembled. A few green feathers floated towards her, and the fluff drilled into her face. Arbor spat twice and wiped the fur on his face with his little hand. The shock in his eyes was still there. Suddenly, a creature with a neck and claws that were very slender and long, flapping a pair of incomparably short wings and squealing, hopped over, flapping its small wings as it chased after her while screaming. "Holy H*T, with this appearance, isn't it just a mutated chicken?" This was a far cry from the ferocious beast she had in mind, all right. "You don't come over." "Wah." Arbor's eyes widened. Seeing the chicken pounce over, she suddenly turned around and ran out of the garden. Xiao Zhongbong and his wife looked at each other in dismay. They couldn't help but burst into laughter. Their daughter's behavior just now was too funny. This was how a little girl should be energetic. The husband and wife happily carried their daughter and chased after her. "Jojo, don't run around. The small parlor for eating is over there." Who would be in the mood to eat at a time like this? Arbor sadly looked up at the clear sky, her heart filled with helplessness. Chapter 153. Good morning, big brother, sister-in-law. Qiao Zhongxing had a good night's sleep and happily brought his son to the entrance of the small parlor. When he looked up and saw his eldest brother and his wife, he smiled and stopped. Who would have thought that when he turned around, he would see his niece, who was usually calm and composed and had the appearance of a little adult, being chased by a strange thing and running towards the reception pavilion behind him. She even let out an anxious voice from her mouth. "Go back, go back." Qiao Zhongxing was dumbfounded. His son, Qiao Hu, exclaimed, "Dad, it's a pheasant. Is it for us?" Qiao Zhongbong and his wife. "Ahem, second brother, don't be nervous. Let's go and have breakfast first." Qiao Zhongbong smiled and patted his younger brother's shoulder. He thought of something and reached into his sleeve to take out a stack of 10 storage talismans, stuffing them into Qiao Zhongxing's hands. "Big brother, what are these? Talisman papers?" The talisman papers sold in the shop were very expensive, and most of them were fake. Where did his brother get these? "Yes, these are storage talismans your niece drew. Let's go in and talk about it in detail." They sat at the round table. Qiao Zhongbong told his younger brother how to use the talismans. He patted his dazed younger brother and chuckled. "Second brother, it's fine if we keep this between ourselves. Jojo said that it's not difficult to draw these talismans, you just have to use them. Qiao Zhongbong nodded at him. Qiao Zhongxing immediately understood. Don't worry, big brother, sister-in-law. I won't tell anyone about the talismans. It was too amazing. His niece was actually a rare talisman master. Wei Ziqin exhorted the children a few more times, then turned to look at her eldest daughter, who had been chased by the pheasant, and ran around in circles downstairs before bouncing back. Jojo. You guys eat first. Aber dashed out the door again and disappeared in an instant. The little foodie nibbled on a pastry and suddenly said in a childish voice, Big sister, you're so funny. Everyone burst into laughter. Aber ran all the way out of the reception hall and rushed to the gate. That damned chicken, flapping its short wings as it chased after her, incessantly clucking. She was the one who summoned it, so she had to swallow this bitter fruit herself. Aber ran to the door and suddenly stopped. He turned to Nu Bi and stretched out his hand. Stop right there. The pheasant took small steps and stopped. Suddenly, it flapped its small wings and spat out a column of water. Qiao Mu was caught off guard. How could she have known that this weakling could spit saliva? She was immediately covered in water from head to toe, dripping down. The little guy's eyes immediately burned with anger. Suddenly, he grabbed the ferrule in his hand and chased after Nu Bi. Don't run, you weakling. Let's see if I can beat this brat to death. Coo coo coo. Even though this weak chicken didn't have much meat on its body, it was extremely nimble and clever. When it saw Qiao Mu rushing over with an ominous glint in her eyes, it hurriedly flapped its little wings and ran towards the entrance of the alley. Don't run. Aber was both angry and amused. After turning a corner, they arrived at the gate of the city lord's mansion. Aber paused slightly. She didn't expect to see a group of people kneeling in front of the city lord's mansion. That weak chicken rushed over and left claw marks on their heads, causing the people kneeling in front of the city lord's mansion to cry out in alarm. Aber was so angry that the corners of her lips twitched. She suddenly took out the spirit-binding rope and threw it out. Coo coo coo. The pheasant's legs were bound by a hemp rope. It still wanted to run, but the child's wrist tightened. It couldn't help but flap its short wings and scream as it fell into the child's hands. Chapter 154. Aber's small hand pinched the chicken's neck, causing the chicken to make pitiful cooing sounds. Don't cry. Aber hit the chicken's head in annoyance, grabbed the chicken's neck, and turned to leave. Aber! A shout came from the gate of the mayor's mansion. Aber turned to see Qiao Wanjuan's figure striding over, and raised her eyebrows slightly. It seemed that Qiao Wanwan had the ability to escape after obtaining the special speed. After she was kicked out of the team, Qiao Mu already couldn't be bothered to speak with her, so she merely swept her a glance when she saw her before expressionlessly turning around to leave with the chicken in her hand. Stop right there, Aber. Qiao Wanwan rushed behind Aber, and just as her fingers were about to grab her slender arm, Aber impolitely kicked her. Qiao Wanwan cried out in surprise, and she took a few steps back and sat on the ground. Wife. Third brother Wei ran over and helped Qiao Wanwan up. Aber then realized that Qiao Wanwan had combed her hair. Qiao Wanwan got married after not seeing her for 2 days? This seemed to be a bit fast. Nei Nei Nyo ran up, and her shrewd eyes scanned Qiao Mu from head to toe. When she saw that this child's cheeks were rosy and her clothes were bright and beautiful, a shrewd glint flitted across her eyes. Isn't this old Qiao's family's Aber? Madame Nyo walked up with a smile, and tried to hold Aber's little hand. Do you still remember Granny Nyo from the Wei family village? Aber took a step back with the chicken, and said with a wooden face, I don't know you. Madame Nyo's deliberate smile suddenly froze on her face. This child, didn't the two families meet a while ago because of your aunt's marriage? Madame Nyo smiled awkwardly. But you're still young, so it's normal that you don't remember. Where's your grandmother? Granny Nyo is going to greet your grandmother. Seeing that this child was dressed in clean and beautiful clothes, she must be living a good life. It had been hard on the Wei clan to flee all the way here. They were exhausted and didn't even have a place to stay. If they didn't go now, when would they? Miss Chiao, did the commotion caused by the city lord's mansion in the middle of the night disturb your rest? The scholar Zhang Yan walked over and asked with a gentle expression. Last night, concubine Lu's reckless second nephew caused a huge commotion. In his fury, the city lord almost chased concubine Lu's entire family out of Shijiao City. That night, Master Lu tied up his second son and knelt in front of the mayor's mansion to beg for forgiveness. Concubine Lu cried for the entire night, causing chaos in the mayor's mansion. With such a large commotion, the Chiao residence, which was only half an alley away, was definitely affected. Zhang Yan looked at the child apologetically. No. Abba shook his head. Mr. Zhang, you worry too much. We had a good rest. That's good. Zhang Yan nodded with a smile. Madame Nyo's line of sight, back and forth on Zhang Yan Abba's body, emitted bursts of sparks. Abba, this brat, was actually so close to the city lord's personal scholar. It seemed like there was hope to fight for some benefits for their Wei clan. That. Mr. Zhang, if there's nothing else, I'll go back first. Abba didn't wait for Madame Nyo to speak and nodded at Zhang Yan before turning to leave. You. Madame Nyo was so angry that her face turned green when she saw that the little fellow didn't give her any face. How would Xiao Mu pay attention to her? She carried the squawking chicken and walked straight home. Isn't this big sister Zichin's Jojo? A gentle voice entered Abba's ears, causing his expression to instantly turn extremely cold. Chapter 155. This voice sounded a bit younger than in her previous life, but it was still as familiar as a nightmare. She would never forget it. She appeared. Wan Rawan. This venomous woman. No matter how docile and pleasant she pretended to be, it could not erase her venomous nature. In her previous life, Wan Rawan only appeared by her grandmother's side a year after the zombie outbreak. Her mother's health deteriorated after giving birth to her younger brother. In this life, Wan Rawan actually appeared ahead of schedule. In reality, she could not understand why Wan Rawan targeted her father when she was so scheming and capable. She could have schemed against any powerful and influential family. In the beginning, her father did not agree to marry Wan Rawan no matter what. It was one thing for him to be intimidated by her grandmother, but Abba felt that there was more to it than met the eye. At that time, Wan Rawan was dead set on marrying Qiao Zhongbong. Qiao Zhongbong was a person with crippled mystic veins. How could Wan Rawan take a liking to him? Don't talk about love. Abba scoffed. She must have missed out on some benefits. At this moment, Wan Rawan's warm smile hung on her lips. However, when she met Xiao Mu's gaze, which was like a deep whirlpool that continuously tore at her soul, she couldn't help but be taken aback. This child's gaze? Why did it seem like it carried a chill from the abyss? There was bone-deep hatred in his eyes. Could it be that she was imagining things? Wan Rawan blinked. When she looked over again, she saw the child's wooden face without any expression. Phew. As expected, it was her imagination. Jojo, is Aunt doing well? Wan Rawan's voice was very soft and sweet. It was pleasant to the ear. Grandmother? She's doing quite well. Abba looked meaningfully at Wan Rawan. Aunt Wan also wants to visit grandmother? In fact, Wan Rawan was her grandmother's distant niece. In her previous life, her grandmother doted on Wan Rawan dearly. It would not be an exaggeration to say that she treated Wan Rawan as half a daughter. If it weren't for grandmother's support, father wouldn't have married Wan Rawan not long after mother passed away. Wan Rawan felt that there was a hint of mockery in the child's soft voice, but when she looked over, she could not discern anything from the expressionless face. Wan Rawan showed what she thought was her friendliest and most beautiful smile. She nodded at Abba and said, "As a junior, Rawan will naturally visit Aunt." Abba glanced at her with an indifferent expression. "Grandmother is sick. She's not in a good condition to meet guests. Aunt Wan is considerate. I will pass the message to grandmother. Aunt is sick. As a junior, I should go." Wan Rawan did not expect to be rejected, so she hurriedly said, "Who do you think you are? I'll take care of my mother." Arbor, take me to my mother. I'm warning you, if anything happens to my mother, I won't let you off. Chow Wan Wan said with a stern expression. Mr. Zhang, I remember that not just anyone can enter the city center, right? Arbor said coldly. That's right. Zhang Yan hastily nodded and said, these people were brought here for questioning because of second young Master Lu. Don't worry, Miss Chow. I'll take care of their whereabouts. Take care, Miss Chow. Arbor nodded. He picked up the chicken that kept squawking and quickly left. Chow Wanjuan's eyes nearly popped out of their sockets. She chased after Arbor and shouted a few times, but the guards of the city lord's estate mercilessly stopped her. The Chow estate's private residence is ahead, Mr. Zhang said indifferently. Don't enter without the owner's permission. Chapter 156. I'm the Chow estate's daughter. I'm that little girl's aunt. Ah. Chow Wan Wan was rudely shoved by the guards and fell into the crowd of Wei family members. What are you doing? Chow Wan Wan shouted angrily, her pretty face flushing purple. Give them their identity tablets, Zhang Yan casually ordered. Zhang Yan ordered casually, then turned and walked towards the group of people from the Lu clan kneeling at the door. Come with me. Family head Lu felt as if he had been granted amnesty and heaved a sigh of relief in his heart. He kicked the groaning second Lu and said, unfilial son, get up. Later, kowtow to your uncle a few more times. Let's see what kind of trouble you've caused in the estate. If you don't beg for your uncle's forgiveness today, I'll kick you out of the Lu family and let you fend for yourself. Causing trouble in the middle of the night and angrily smashing the city gates, this unfilial son was the one who did all these shameful things. If it weren't for his old face, perhaps their Lu family would have already been kicked out of Shijiu City by the city lord. Second Lu pursed his lips and got up from the ground, feeling wronged. He did not forget to look back at Wen Ruan and smiled obsequiously. Little sister Xiaowan, wait for me. Dad, what are you doing? Second Lu, whose left ear was grabbed by family head Lu, was in so much pain that his head tilted to the side. He followed family head Lu to the city lord's estate and kept calling out, little sister Xiaowan. Coward. What a useless guy. She even had to sacrifice her body and let this coward take advantage of her the entire way. She was really infuriated. When Ruan resentfully glared at second Lu's back before curtsying to a guard from the city lord's estate. She said softly, little brother, I'm a relative of that little girl from before. I really want to visit my aunt. Can you make things easy for me? The guards of the city lord's estate saw that she was beautiful and elegant, unlike Chow Wan Wan who shouted and made a ruckus like a village woman without any etiquette. Thus, they had a better impression of Wen Ruan and spoke to her more politely. Miss, it's not that we want to stop you, but you heard what Miss Chow said just now. The old madam of the Chow family is not seeing guests recently, so please don't make things difficult for us. That young guard mysteriously said to Wen Ruan, that Miss Xiao Chow is an honored guest that our city lord ordered to treat well and not offend. Wen Ruan felt gloomy and displeased, but she still put on a gentle smile and nodded obediently. Then we'll have to trouble you to send us away, little brother. Of course. On the contrary, the guard liked the gentle and docile Wen Ruan very much. He deliberately rummaged through the pile of wooden tablets and handed one to her, saying with a smile, although we're all staying in the shanty district, there are also good and bad places to stay. The location of this wooden plaque was one of the better spots in the shed area. When you go to the west of the city, miss, you must be careful. Wen Ruan thanked him on the surface, but she felt disdainful on the inside. So what if he gave her a bamboo tile that corresponded to her location? And it wasn't even in that damned low-class shanty town. She really didn't expect that she, Wen Ruan, would have to live in the shed area. The city lord's estate guard threw a handful of bamboo tablets to Chow Wan Wan and the others. These are your identity tablets. Take one from each family. Guards, immediately send them to the west of the city. Chow Wan Wan immediately kicked one of the tablets and shouted fiercely like a shrew, what right do you have to make us leave? My mother lives here. I want to find my mother. You don't have the right to make me leave. Mother. 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 Chapter 157. Make them leave immediately. As soon as the head of the bodyguards gave the order, 2 people immediately came forward and unceremoniously grabbed Xiao Wanwan, who was struggling and shouting. They carried her all the way out of Pear Blossom Alley. Xiao Wanwan screamed until her throat was hoarse. She was so angry that sparks could fly out of her eyes. She kept cursing, "Arbor, you cursed little bastard, how dare you treat your aunt like this? You're utterly devoid of conscience and morals. I'll see how you'll die in the future." The city lord's estate's guards were experienced in dealing with this kind of shrew. They directly stuffed a dirty rag into Xiao Wanjuan's mouth, and her screams abruptly stopped. The 2 of them worked together to drag Xiao Wanwan outside and threw her onto the donkey cart without the slightest bit of pity for the fairer sex. The city lord's estate's guards pushed the Wei family members onto the donkey cart one after another and pulled the cart toward the west of the city. However, they were more courteous to Wan Ruan. They even specially gave her a gentle pony and let her ride it alone. The Wei family left with sullen faces while cursing at the heavens and earth. Arbor carried the chicken's neck back home and did not pay attention to the farce in front of the city lord's estate. "Caw, caw, caw, caw. You're going to caw again? I'll turn you into a bald chicken and pluck out all your feathers." Arbor threatened coldly, not caring if the chicken understood him or not. Sure enough, the chicken did not dare to caw. It flapped its wings and cawed pitifully. "Heh. What are you dissatisfied with?" Arbor coldly glanced at the chicken. "I'm the one who's embarrassed. Have you ever seen anyone use a summoning talisman to summon a bald chicken? I'm truly the first person since ancient times." Arbor huffed angrily. He got a bit angry just talking about it. "Caw, caw, caw." A certain chicken flapped its wings indignantly and spouted water all the way. The child unreservedly flicked its head. "If you keep spouting water, I'll twist your head off and kick it like a ball." A certain person felt very miserable. "Child, did your parents know that you're so savage? Do you think you're so great just because you can spray water? I can find a street performer and he can even spit fire." Arbor angrily rebuked the chicken. Then, he felt that he was a little funny. This chicken. Perhaps when it was summoned by him, it also felt extremely helpless and had no choice. "I'm telling you, when it's time, go back immediately. The next time I use the summoning talisman, you have to be more careful. Don't come and join in the fun, okay? I'll let it go this time. I forgive you. Let's get along well and part on good terms. After one day, leave quickly and don't look back." She was a great talisman master who had to summon fierce beasts like lions, tigers, bears, leopards, and so on. How could she endure summoning a chicken? As soon as Steward Chong Zai opened the door, he saw his stoic-faced little miss holding a chicken in one hand and muttering non-stop. That scene was indescribably beautiful. Chong Zai's mouth twitched as he opened the door for Arbor and welcomed her in. "Miss, Master and Madam said that you haven't eaten breakfast yet. Do you need some now?" Arbor shook his head. "No need, Butler Chong. I'm going to old Madam's room. Is Su Nyong there?" Speaking of Su Nyong, Chong Zai wanted to shed a tear of sympathy for her. Su Nyong was in charge of chores like sweeping the courtyard and was also assigned by the little master to go out and buy things. When she had time, she still had to go to old Madam's room to wait on her. She was as busy as a spinning top every day. Old Madam doesn't need much service. Serve her 3 meals a day and make her a pot of tea to cool down. Arbor carried the chicken and walked as she said indifferently, "At this time, it's already good enough to have 3 meals a day. What's there to be so particular about?" Chapter 158. The corner of Chong Zai's mouth twitched. He could tell that the young master did not like the old lady very much. Chong Zai respectfully led Arbor to the door of the old lady's room. He gave Su Nyong a look, and the 2 of them left together. The old lady's leg had not recovered yet. When Abba threw away the chicken and walked into the room, the old lady was half leaning on the bed. Seeing Abba walk in, the old lady coughed awkwardly. "Jojo is here." "Grandmother." Abba bowed indifferently. Although his expression was cold, old lady Chow could not find any fault with his etiquette. "Sit, Jojo." Old lady Chow's face was full of kindness. She wanted to mend the relationship between her and her granddaughter. Old lady Chow saw everything that happened at the city gate of Shijiao City. She finally realized that her granddaughter was very different from before. Her granddaughter seemed to have a lot of power. Even the mayor and the others were polite to her. How could an old lady like her not know how to adapt to the situation? Abba sat down on the small stool beside the old lady's bed. He took out a family separation document from his sleeve and spread it in front of the old lady. Old lady Chow's eyes twitched. She did not understand what the child was doing. "Grandmother, I met a group of people at the street corner just now. They said it was Mrs. Nyo from the Wei family village. Are you familiar with them? Wasn't the Wei family village?" Old lady Chow was surprised. "That's your aunt's future in-laws. My aunt has already married herself. She's with them now." "What?" Old lady Chow looked at Abba in shock. "Your aunt is really getting married?" Abba nodded. "There's also a girl with the surname Wen. She and my aunt wanted to see you, but I stopped them. That Miss Wen said she's your distant niece. Are you familiar with her?" Old lady Chow's forehead twitched. She raised her hand to rub her head and sighed. "Child, if you have something to say, just say it. I don't mean anything else. I just want to ask grandmother, do you want to live with your daughter, son-in-law, and your distant niece? Or do you plan to stay here and live with us?" Abba's face was indifferent as he caressed the separation document. "After all, our Chow family has officially separated. I have no obligation to care about the private affairs of other families, let alone Chow Wanwan, who has married and stayed in the Wei family. Father and mother are kind-hearted. It's only right for them to support grandmother." Abba looked at the old lady meaningfully. "As for the others, our family is not a charity." Old Madam Chow couldn't help but smile bitterly. This child was beating around the bush to force her to make a statement and warn her to know her place. "Jojo, don't worry. Grandmother isn't stupid. Why would she interfere with the Wei family's business? As for your little aunt, Sai." Old lady Chow was at a loss for words when she recalled how her daughter had pushed her out as a scapegoat. Abba nodded in satisfaction, stood up, bowed, and left. Looking at her granddaughter's resolute figure, old lady Chow suddenly felt a little regretful. She didn't even want to say a single word to her. Was it so easy to mend a broken heart in the past? 2 days later, outside the royal palace's Chen Yuqin gate, 3 large carriages of goods were parked. 2 rows of guards stood on the left and right, looking valiant and formidable. The captain of the guards standing at the front held a large red brocade box in his hands and looked straight ahead. "Stop the carriage." A gorgeous carriage stopped outside the Chen Yuqin gate. The carriage curtain lifted, and a graceful figure darted out of the carriage, snatching the large red brocade box from the captain's hands. What a dense mystic energy aura! Chapter 159. The guard captain was shocked and dodged backward while holding the brocade box. He raised his scabbard to block the soft, jade-like hand. "Commandery Princess, please stay your hand. This is a gift prepared by His Highness the Crown Prince. Please be careful and don't damage it." A gift from Brother Crown Prince? Who is it for? The newcomer was a young girl about 13 years old. She was wearing a long dress embroidered with golden flowers, and her glossy black hair reached her waist. There was an 8-treasure glazed hairpin inserted into her loose black hair. Her skin was creamy, and her face was like a full moon. She was extremely charming. At this moment, her hand was tightly clasped around the guard captain's wrist. Her eyes were sharp as she coldly stared at the other party. "Commandery Princess Hui En." The guard captain did not appear overly flustered when facing this pampered commandery princess. He only respectfully said, "This subordinate is only responsible for escorting this batch of goods and does not know anything else. Let go. Let this commandery princess see what's inside the box." Commandery Princess Hui and pursed her lips and coldly stared at the guard captain. "Please forgive this subordinate for not being able to comply." Insolence! Commandery Princess Hui and was enraged. She raised her willowy eyebrows and glared at him coldly. "He Tian, you, a mere centurion of the Imperial Guard, dare to look down on this commandery princess like this? How should you be punished?" "Commandery Princess, this subordinate does not dare. However, this subordinate has no choice but to obey the king's orders." "Commandery Princess, please make way. This subordinate and his subordinates still need to leave the city and cannot be delayed." He Tian held the box with one hand and crossed his thick arm in front of his chest as he loudly spoke to Commandery Princess Hui En. "You impudent dog slave! How dare you look down on this commandery princess?" Commandery Princess Hui and gritted her teeth and cursed as she pulled out a whip from her waist. With a smack, she heavily swung it at He Tian's arm. He Tian was as immovable as a mountain and tightly hugged the brocade box in his arm. His eyes were unperturbed as he looked at the pampered commandery princess and coldly said, "Commandery Princess, this subordinate is following His Highness the Crown Prince's orders. You dog slave, you're using Brother Crown Prince to suppress this commandery princess again." Huiyan didn't wait for him to finish before scolding him. She raised the whip in her hand again and this time, she didn't hesitate to lash it at Captain He Tian's face. Seeing that the whip was about to land on He Tian's face, He Tian did not dodge or move. A magnetic voice with endless coldness suddenly sounded. "Hui An, what are you doing?" Commandery Princess Hui An's whip was raised high in the air, unable to descend. She turned her head and hurriedly put away the whip. She put on a soft and sweet expression and ran up the stairs with a face full of joy. "Brother Crown Prince." She raised her head to look at that faintly discernible white robe. Although His Highness the Crown Prince was standing against the light and his handsome face couldn't be seen clearly, Hui An didn't know why, but her maiden heart felt like it was about to jump out of her chest, thumping non-stop. "It stinks." Before Commandery Princess Hui An could come within 2 feet of him, the Crown Prince swiftly raised his leg and very nonchalantly kicked the flying commandery princess down the steps. Hidden Flower, the captain of the hidden pavilion, who was standing beside the Crown Prince, was speechless. The ministers who had rushed down the steps to speak with the Crown Prince, Commandery Princess Hui An rolled down the steps. She originally wanted to steady herself, but for some reason, she tripped and fell flat on her face. The scene was so beautiful that no one could bear to look at it directly. "Why are you still standing here?" The Crown Prince angrily rebuked He Tian with a sullen face. "Are you an idiot? You don't know how to fight back when someone hits you? You didn't even dodge. Do you think you're made of stone?" The ministers who had rushed down to mediate the fight. "That's a commandery princess, my lord. Is it really okay for you to instigate a lowly centurion under your command to rebel and attack the commandery princess?" Chapter 160. He Tian immediately cupped his hands and admitted his mistake with a serious expression. "Yes, this humble subordinate will immediately depart. The next time I encounter something like this, I definitely won't not retaliate." Hidden Flower's mouth twitched. He freaking felt that the personal guards brought by the Royal Guard Commander, Hui Feng, were similar to him, a bunch of hotheads. The Crown Prince, who was worried sick about his subordinates, sighed helplessly and turned to look at Hidden Flower. "Why are you still here? This subordinate will go immediately." Hidden Flower's expression turned solemn, and he quickly followed He Tian's group. He had promised His Highness the Crown Prince that he would personally patrol Shizhou City in His Highness' stead. It was not until He Tian's group had rolled far away that Commandery Princess Hui En, who had fallen flat on her face, finally realized that her brother the Crown Prince had mercilessly kicked her flying. "Commandery Princess," her personal maidservant cautiously called out to the Commandery Princess. This maidservant will help you up." "I don't need you to help me," commanded Princess Hui, and jumped up from the ground. Her well-groomed hair was half disheveled, and she looked very disheveled. The main reason was that she had fallen head first and nibbled on it, and the area around her nose was bleeding. Her appearance was too beautiful, so her personal maidservant did not dare to look straight at her. Go investigate. Investigate clearly. Brother Crown Prince, who did you give gifts to?" commanded Princess Hui, and was so angry that her lips were trembling, and her heart full of tenderness and sweetness turned into fury. Seeing her personal maidservant's cowardly appearance, Hui slapped her and angrily shouted, "Hurry and help this commandery princess tidy up my appearance. This commandery princess will immediately see Her Majesty the Queen." Her personal maidservant shrunk her neck with a bitter expression. Although she was afraid of commandery Princess Hui, she still could not help but console her. Her Majesty values His Highness the Crown Prince more than her eyes. If such a small matter is brought to Her Majesty, it will only cause her displeasure. Commandery Princess Hui angrily stomped her feet. "I don't care. Then I'll go reason with Her Majesty the Queen Dowager." "Commandery Princess, let's return to the estate first." A few maidservants followed behind her and bitterly consoled her. Although the Queen Dowager usually doted on the commandery princess, if it was related to Her Majesty the Queen Dowager's precious grandson, even 10 commandery princesses would not be enough. Commandery Princess Hui was so angry that she left the royal palace in tears. When Emolien heard the report from the eunuch Xiao 11Z, she didn't even raise her head. She only made a sound of acknowledgement, and the brush in her hand moved slightly before she placed it to the side. The Crown Prince propped up his chin with one hand and tilted his head to look at the table. This continued until Xiao 11Z cautiously called out, "Your Highness the Crown Prince, the 9th and 10th princesses have arrived." "Oh." The Crown Prince moved his elbow and raised his head. His gaze fell on the door. "Go ahead." The 9th princess and the 10th princess were both born from concubine Shi. One was 8 years old and the other was 7 years old. Their ages weren't too far apart and they were both cute and delicate. When the two children were led into the Eastern Palace by their wet nurses, they were very nervous. Their mother's exhortations kept echoing in their ears. "When you go to the Eastern Palace, you must be courteous and respectful to the Crown Prince. You must do everything possible to please the Crown Prince. You must not let the Crown Prince dislike you." Inks now. Mali. Greetings to the Crown Prince. The two of them both crouched and saluted. They were young, but they had learned proper etiquette deep into their bones. Their every move was very standard, as if they were puppets carved from the same mold. Emolien frowned. She only glanced at her two younger sisters before losing interest. Chapter 161. They really were completely different children. The Crown Prince was a bit melancholy. So it wasn't that he changed his personality and liked to be close to children. Instead, the Crown Prince no longer had any interest in looking at his two younger sisters. He waved his hand, and Xiao 11Z went forward to whisper something to the two wet nurses accompanying them. The wet nurses of the two princesses were stunned for a moment before they immediately nodded. They each held the 9th and 10th princesses' small hands and led them out of the Eastern Palace. From beginning to end, the two little princesses didn't know what had happened. Why did their royal brother, the Crown Prince, only glance at them and let them leave without saying anything? After leaving the Eastern Palace, the 10th princess burst into tears and asked timidly while sobbing, "Wet nurse, did we make royal brother Crown Prince angry?" The 10th princess wet nurse dotingly hugged the child and repeatedly said, No, His Highness the Crown Prince is busy with work, so he let us leave first." The 10th princess asked pitifully with teary eyes, "Really? Then why didn't royal brother say anything to us? Does he not like us?" The wet nurse repeatedly nodded and then hurriedly shook her head. No, don't worry, princess. I will explain to Her Highness concubine Shi. Both princesses are so polite and considerate, so how could His Highness the Crown Prince not like you? Xiao 11Z, who had sent them out, helplessly watched as the wet nurse led the two princesses away. He shook his head and returned to the Eastern Palace. Sigh, I don't know what's wrong with that lord at home again, but he suddenly said that he wanted to see his two royal sisters. In the end, he sent them away without saying anything after they came. Crown Prince, you'll really scare little children if you act so recklessly. When Xiao 11Z returned to the room, he immediately saw his master maintaining the same posture of propping up his chin with his hand and staring motionlessly at the table. He's been standing there in a daze for at least 15 minutes. Xiao 11Z trotted to the Crown Prince's side and wanted to take a look at the table out of curiosity. However, he saw the Crown Prince reach out 2 fingers to pick up the thin drawing paper and raise it high. Xiao 11Z didn't even see a strand of hair. On the drawing paper was a little girl with a stoic face. She was expressionlessly looking at him. Her clear black and white eyes were like 2 cold pools. If one wasn't careful, they could suck in one's sole remembrance. The little girl in the painting was held above her head by 2 hands. If he dared to do this in real life, she would definitely beat him until his face was swollen. The Crown Prince stared at the painting for a long time and muttered to himself, "You look at me expressionlessly all day long, probably because you are lazy." Fine. Laugh. Let's go. Who's looking at His Highness expressionlessly? Who dares to be so rude in front of His Highness that he can't even be bothered to smile? Xiao 11Z immediately jumped out and voiced his doubts. Who was so fearless as to treat their master like this? When had their master's temper ever been so good? I can't kill her. The Crown Prince glanced at his personal eunuch and thought, so stupid. Why did I take him in? Your Highness, the 2 princesses left the Eastern Palace with apprehension. They were very sad. Xiao 11Z hurriedly came forward and reported, I'm afraid that when I return, I won't be able to escape concubine she's scolding. The Crown Prince said nothing. Xiao 11Z snuck a glance at the Crown Prince and cleared his throat before asking, Why did your Highness chase the 2 princesses away without saying a word? Saying a few words of comfort was better than not saying anything at all, right? Because... The Crown Prince smoothed out the drawing paper in his hand and gently folded it. He then stood up and slowly said, They're not as cute as her at all. Chapter 162. The Vassal King of Annan's Estatia series of messy smashing noises came from Commandery Princess Hui Anne's boudoir, and it had not stopped for an hour. Commandery Princess. Commandery Princess. Guard Nian has returned. Her personal maidservant tremblingly closed the door and was almost hit in the head by a teacup thrown at her. She rolled on the floor in a panic and repeatedly kowtowed to beg for mercy. Idiot, hurry up and call him in. Commandery Princess Hui Anne angrily sat down on the round-backed chair and fiercely slammed the table. A tanned young man who looked like a farmer strode in and cupped his hands in salute. Commandery Princess. This subordinate has investigated and found that the caravan is heading toward Shijiao City. What kind of place is Shijiao City? The Commandery Princess frowned. Shijiao City is quite far from the royal capital. It's a small city. Why did Brother Crown Prince send people there? Hui An muttered to herself. This subordinate has also investigated and found that the Crown Prince ordered people to wantonly purchase a lot of items for young ladies in the city these past 2 days. Women? Hui An's voice rose an octave before she heavily slammed the table. She gritted her teeth and said, What a little b******. When did His Highness the Crown Prince get seduced by a little b***** without her knowledge? Nian Kuei, I want you to immediately take 2 people and follow them. Once you reach Shijiao City, investigate that b*****'s origins. Commandery Princess Hui An's voice was as cold as ice. Yes, Commandery Princess. Nian Kuei nodded. Should we capture her? No need. Hui An gritted her teeth and pushed a small box in front of Nian Kuei. Just make that little b**** consume this. Hui An's lips tugged into a malicious smile. I want that b*** to beg for death. Since she dared to steal Brother Crown Prince's favor from her, the Golden Commandery Princess Hui An, then she would make that be *tch suffer for the rest of her life. Your Highness. Hui Feng lightly leaped and landed outside the pavilion before saluting. The Crown Prince was sitting next to the railing in a leisurely and elegant manner. His slender fingers pinched a few pieces of pastry powder and tossed them into the pool. Commandery Princess Hui, and sent 3 royal guards to Shijiao City. One of them is a 7th-layer body-tempering cultivator. Hui Feng's words caused the Crown Prince's fingers to pause. A trace of mockery flashed in the depths of the Crown Prince's eyes. His voice was indifferent as he said, "Let her be. You'll die if you underestimate baby Qiao." His mood was inexplicably excited. Darling Qiao should be quite bored after settling down in Shijiao City, so it would be good for her to practice her skills with these 3 idiots. Your Highness, the great king has summoned you. Read it. The Crown Prince flicked his sleeves, his voice indifferent. The great king decreed, for the past few days, the zombies have been wreaking havoc in the royal city, causing the people to be unable to make a living and suffering. This lonely one is deeply worried and unable to sleep at night. Today, I've decided to go to Mount Hong to pray for the people and set off immediately. He promoted the Crown Prince to be a regent and to handle the daily affairs of the state. The afternoon breeze caressed the Crown Prince's face. Although the weather was very hot, the eunuch who delivered the edict felt waves of cold air. After reading the edict, he stood there stiffly, not daring to move. The Crown Prince raised his eyebrows with a faint smile. Who else did the great king bring with him? Although the Crown Prince didn't fly into a rage, he could still feel his terrifying rage. The edict eunuch said with trepidation, "The great king brought consort Zheng and noble lady He. And. The edict eunuch rattled off the names of several beauties. The Crown Prince nodded, his eyes cold and cheerless. You may withdraw. The edict eunuch wiped his sweat and hurried away. He felt a chill run down his spine. The great king left behind a pile of mess and ran off like this. Will your Highness the Crown Prince really allow you to peacefully enjoy a beautiful holiday? Isn't it a bit too monotonous with only beauties? The Crown Prince narrowed his eyes and muttered to himself, Throw a few zombies over and let the great king have some liveliness over there. Hui Feng. The great king, please take care of yourself. Shijiao City. After darling Qiao finished absorbing the last magnetite, she looked up at the darkening sky outside the window. Miss, there's a youth from Daybreak Sect who calls himself Duan Yu requesting an audience. Why did Duan Yu come here? Chapter 163. A camphor tree was planted outside the window, and several kingfishers perched on its branches, chirping from time to time. The sky outside the window had completely darkened. Abba threw away the last magnetite in her hand and sighed. The mystic energy she could absorb from 500 low-grade magnetite was less than 1/10 of it. Most of it went into the sapling's mouth. This was truly too much of a scam. At this rate, when would she be able to advance into the ranks of level 5 mystic cultivators? Abba looked up outside the window when she heard 2 knocks on the door. Miss, a youth from the Daybreak Sect, Duan Yu, is requesting an audience. Steward Chong Zai stood behind the door, not daring to speak too loudly. Qiao Mu jumped down from the bed and opened the door. She walked to the steward with her little paws behind her back. What is he doing here? Miss, isn't this youth your friend? Chong Zai was surprised. That youth came to the door with a chuckle and claimed to be little Miss's friend. He thought the youth and his little miss were acquaintances. Abba's footsteps paused, and her gaze was icy. Her childish voice should have been soft, but it carried an inexplicable murderous aura. I've never had any friends. The steward's heart trembled, and he took a step back and bowed. This old servant understands. Abba pattered toward the side hall. Although she did not speak the entire way, the steward inexplicably sensed the low pressure coming from the little master. It was not until she entered the hall and her gaze landed on the elegantly seated youth drinking tea that Qiao Mu coldly said, In the future, don't casually let in unimportant people. Duan Yu was originally drinking tea without restraint, but his hand froze when he heard the child's retort. Why was this child so unadorable? Hey, is this the attitude you should have toward a friend? Duan Yu angrily threw the teacup on the table and jumped up from the chair. No matter what, we're friends who have gone through thick and thin together, through fire and water, through life and death together. I don't have any friends. Xiao Mu frowned and looked at him strangely. Duan Yu immediately exploded. You, what kind of gaze and attitude is that? What did you say? What do you mean by no friends? I thought that we, after going through a life and death situation together, we should be good friends who can go through thick and thin together, right? He was infuriated. How could there be such an evil child in this world? When she didn't speak, she looked obedient and cute. She was soft and cute. The moment she opened her mouth, he wanted to kill her. No friends. The child bluntly retorted him with 3 words, which angered Duan Yu so much that he jumped up and wanted to run out the door. He didn't want to talk to her anymore. This facial paralysis, this ice-cold wooden doll, this little bastard. He was really looking for trouble. That was why he rushed here to be scolded by her. The little fellow pattered over to the seat of honor and jumped up, looking coldly at the youth standing in front of him. The little guy was sitting on the round-backed chair. He was only half the size of the chair. He curled up into a soft ball on the chair with his little arms and legs slightly raised. For a split second, Duan Yu suddenly wanted to laugh. Why did he get angry with a little kid? Duan Yu decisively returned to his seat and looked at the child face to face. Just because we didn't have any friends before doesn't mean we won't have any in the future. From today onward, we are friends. Tomorrow, the Mystic Cultivator Association will send someone to guide the children in the city and open their mystic meridians. Jojo, let's go take a look together. Chapter 164. Not interested. The child's words were like a boulder that forcefully suppressed Duan Yu's enthusiasm. How could there be such a heartless and emotionless child in this world? Normally, when a child heard someone's invitation to go out and play, wouldn't they happily agree to it? What kind of mutant was this child? How could she be so loathsome? Jojo. Second Uncle Qiao suddenly walked in excitedly. Didn't this little brother say earlier that an instructor from the Mystic Cultivator Association will come tomorrow to guide the children in the city to open their mystic meridians? Abba glanced at Qiao who was hiding behind Second Uncle. That child's round head was lowered and he kept rubbing the corner of his clothes, looking uneasy and uneasy. Yes. Abba jumped down from the chair and pattered to Qiao Hu's side. She grabbed his hand. Brother Xiao Hu, I'll accompany you to find an instructor to open your mystic meridians tomorrow. Don't worry, it doesn't matter if you succeed or not. We're just going to try, so don't put too much pressure on yourself. Xiao Hu looked up at Abba pitifully. Sister, I've already tried for 3 years, but I haven't succeeded in opening my mystic meridians. What's wrong with that? Some people try 8 to 10 times in a row before succeeding. You've only tried 3 times, so it's nothing. Maybe we'll succeed this time. Abba comforted Qiao Hu by patting his shoulder. Really? Qiao Hu's eyes brightened. Duan Yu looked at the child with a stifled expression. Why was she so cold and heartless when he spoke to her? It was as if she kept him at arm's length. However, the child even learned how to comfort that thick-headed brat. Then I'll come pick you up tomorrow morning. Seeing that the child was about to turn around and refuse, Duan Yu quickly said, I can take you through a special passage. There's no need to line up. The child ran to his side with small steps, raised his head and waved at him. So cute. She's a baby when she doesn't speak. Duan Yu bent down in surprise, and a strand of hair brushed past his face. What do you want to say to me? Slap. A talisman was slapped on the youth's forehead. Sleep. Second Uncle Qiao, Duan Yu, Qiao Hu said, Sister, you're amazing. This is the demon suppression talisman, isn't it? Naughty child. You're thinking too much, okay? Those who go around with fake talismans and say that there are demons causing trouble in your house are all fake Taoist priests who cheat you of your money. You're the demon, your whole family are monsters. The youth's breath was stuck in his chest. After a long while, the young man stretched out 2 fair fingers and tore off the talisman that was floating on his forehead. Facing the child's bright and watery eyes, the youth was speechless for a moment. "This is a new toy for children?" Darling Chow sighed and crossed the tall threshold with her hands behind her back like an old man. As she walked, she muttered to herself, "I didn't expect that such a weakling would have a higher cultivation than me. How helpless! Any random cat or dog was more powerful than her. It was all the little tree's fault for always fighting with her." Capital. Origin. Aber looked up at the sky. If the opponent was 1 rank higher than her, they would be immune to the sleeping talisman's effects. Duan Yu stiffly stood behind the threshold and stretched out his hand to call back that strange child. "Come back and tell me, who's the weakling?" Early the next morning, after Aber freshened up, she headed straight for the entrance. As expected, Duan Yu was waiting outside the Chow estate. When he saw her step out, he cheerfully greeted her, "Jojo, good morning." Chapter 165. One does not hit a smiling person, so Chow Mu expressionlessly nodded her small head at him. Duan Yu's smile was brighter than a flower. "Let's go, Jojo. Get on the carriage." Today, not only did the Mystic Cultivator Association send people, but the 3 sects also sent people. Aber got on the carriage with a taut face and waited solemnly. Chow, who anxiously glanced at his sister, but when he saw that she had no intention of speaking, he also shut his mouth. The carriage started rolling and headed toward the western part of the city where the crowd was gathered. Many city citizens had gathered at the plaza on the western part of the city early in the morning after hearing the news. They lined up with their families and inquired about the news with each other. They never dreamed that the Mystic Cultivator Association would come today to try to activate the children's mystic meridians. If their children could successfully activate their mystic meridians and become mystic cultivators, they would definitely be able to change their current impoverished situation. They would no longer need to live in this tiny shanty town in the western part of the city. Life in the shanty town was difficult and resources were scarce, so theft and robbery often occurred. Whoever had the biggest fist was the law. 2 days ago, a young couple was unlucky enough to be robbed when they entered the shanty town. The only food they had in their bags was also plundered. Now, their lives were extremely miserable and they had to beg everywhere for a living. The chaotic western part of the city originally housed many people from other villages and towns. Because the Mystic Cultivator Association had set this place as the location for the children's test, the city lord sent people to chase away the refugees on the square and clean it up before the sun even rose. Hence, when Aba's carriage arrived, the road was basically unobstructed. As the carriage rolled past the Main Street Plaza, Chow who lifted the curtain to take a look. The western part of the city isn't as chaotic as imagined. It's just a little tidying up because there are guests. Aber didn't need to look to know what kind of scene this place usually was. Earlier, at Shijiu City's city gate, when the young couple refused to hand over their resources and came to live in the shanty town for free with a low-class sign, Mr. Zhang's meaningful gaze made it clear to Aber that life in the shantytown might not be easy. In this kind of place where the strong preyed on the weak, a young couple with food would be robbed in a matter of minutes. Therefore, even if they didn't hand over their supplies, they wouldn't be able to keep their belongings. If they had handed it over at that time, they might have been able to exchange it for an ordinary residence in the north or south of the city. What the couple did was absolutely stupid, but Mr. Zhang had no obligation to remind them. Aber walked down from the carriage, and immediately countless gazes gathered on her. The child wore a moon-white shirt, and his stoic face was expressionless. Although she didn't have any accessories on her body, she still gave people an indescribable feeling of nobility. "Yo, Chow Hu, you've come to trigger your meridians again. As expected, you come every year without fail. Unfortunately, it's not of much use. My mother said that you're a good-for-nothing and that you'll never become a mystic cultivator in this lifetime." A child's voice rudely entered Arba's ears, causing her to involuntarily knit her brows. Arba's cold gaze shot over and saw that it was an 8 or 9-year-old child. He wore a white robe in the style of the Daybreak sect, and the unique circular emblem of the Daybreak sect was embroidered on his chest. "Who are you?" Arba felt that the little boy in front of him was somewhat familiar. Younger sister, He's second aunt's son, Chao Kong, second aunt. Arba's "I don't know" expression made Chao Tsung's heart burn with anger. "Are you an idiot?" Chao Tsung pointed at Arba and cursed, "You don't even recognize your second aunt, my mother." Chapter 166. Arba's eyes chilled to the extreme. Without another word, she stepped forward and kicked Chao Tsung in the stomach. Chao Tsung's eyes widened as he was sent flying by the little girl's kick. He crashed into the back of the crowd, eliciting screams in a small area. Duan Yu followed behind her, but he simply couldn't stop her. He angrily flung his sleeves. Why did Daybreak sect only accept idiots with bad brains? Why did they provoke the little girl when they didn't have the ability? If this wasn't seeking death, then what was? Wah! Chao Tsung, who was sent flying, felt a terrible pain in his stomach, and he opened his mouth wide to cry. "Son!" A middle-aged woman darted out of the crowd and rushed toward Chao Kong. Arba glanced at the woman and pondered for a moment before recalling this second aunt. Wasn't she Madame Nei Li, who once came to steal her supplies? So it was this outrageous second aunt. Chao Ying Chun followed behind Madame Nei Li and coyly jogged over. When she looked up and saw Arba, her eyes widened. "Mom, it's her. That little B*TCH who stole our clothes and jewelry is here. Hurry and teach her a lesson." "You scoundrel!" Madame Nei Li turned to point at Arba and angrily rebuked. "You still dare to appear in front of us? Where's your mom? Tell Wei Zichin to come out. I want to have a good talk with her. Do you know how to teach your daughter? What kind of thing have you raised? Stealing things and hitting her older brother without any etiquette or rules. Truly a little B****. With a dark expression, Arba took out an identity tablet with a flip of his hand and flashed it at the dumbfounded guards of the city lord's estate. "Capture her." The words, "superior," were carved on the back of the tablet. This was a pampered guest from the city center. The guards' expressions turned solemn, and they immediately rushed toward the jabbering Madame Nei Li. They grabbed her arms behind her back and shoved her in front of Arba. "Slap her until I'm satisfied," Arba coldly ordered, his soft childish voice devoid of any emotion. A guard slapped Madame Nei Li's face. Slap. For a moment, the square was silent. Even the 3 mentors of the Mystic Cultivator Association who were sitting in front of the long table and giving guidance tests to the children in line stood up and looked at the commotion with confusion. "Pa! Slap!" She slapped Madame Li's face repeatedly. Madame Li's hands were clamped behind her back. At first, she could still struggle and curse at Arba. After a dozen or so slaps, his cheeks began to feel numb, and he couldn't even open his mouth. Chao Tsung was furious. A layer of mystic energy covered his fist as he angrily flew towards Arba and swung his fist at her face. "Slut! Go to hell! You overestimate yourself." Chao Mu gripped his fist with a backhand. Chao Tsung widened his eyes in shock. He knew very well how fast he had rushed over, but that little girl, who was 2 years younger than him, had actually grabbed his fist in an instant. What's so great about being a mystic? Could a mystic cultivator disregard other people's life and death? A level 1 mystic cultivator's eyes were as high as the sky. "You're a good-for-nothing through and through." The little girl's voice was monotonous, but everyone present could hear the chill in her voice. Crack. Ah. The pain from his wrist being broken made Chao Tsung, this child, unable to resist opening his mouth and howling. Do mystic cultivators also know how to cry? The little girl's lips curled up mockingly. When she said this, she gave people a feeling of endless coldness. Chapter 167. Then cry even louder. Aba flung Chao Tsung away. The latter rolled to Chao Ying-chuan's side with a loud crash. It startled Chao Ying-chun so much that she jumped to the side like a grasshopper and let out a piercing shriek. "Shut up," Aba reprimanded rudely. Chao Ying-chuan's eyes widened in horror and she instantly restrained her voice. Her body trembled uncontrollably, and she reflexively covered her mouth. Why did she feel that this child was so scary? "Stop," Chao Mu said faintly and walked to Madame Neili with small steps. Chao Mu raised her head slightly and looked at her swollen cheeks and mouth with a cold glint in her eyes. "Your son wants to kill me. He should be dead already. What do you want to do?" Li Madame's mouth hurt, and she couldn't even speak clearly. She felt a chill run down her spine, as if she had fallen into an ice cellar. She suddenly felt a bit of regret. Why did she provoke this child? Back in Kwoto village, she clearly knew that although this child was young, he wasn't to be trifled with. "I'll spare his life for father's sake." Aba coldly glanced at Li Madame. "Just this once." "I won't." Before he could finish speaking, Chao Tsung suddenly let out an agitated cry. "Master, master, master." Chao Tsung suddenly pounced on a figure walking quickly toward them and bawled loudly. He pointed at Aba with resentment and anger. "She wants to kill me. This little B***tch wants to kill me. Master. Master, save me. Don't panic. Disciple." The newcomer was middle-aged and wore Daybreak Sect's uniform. He looked toward Aba with a shrewd gaze. "You're so daring, child. What's your background? Tell me your name." Aba raised a brow and sneered rudely. "I hit the young one, and the old one jumps out to shout. You're really shameless. You little rascal, speaking so rudely. You really need someone to teach you a lesson," the middle-aged man said angrily with a dark expression. "You want to teach me a lesson?" Aba expressionlessly swept a glance over his square face. His voice rose slightly with a hint of viciousness. "You, Uncle Master Bai. You aren't her match. Hurry and retreat." Duan Yu really wanted to kill these worrisome disciples. Did they think that he still had enough profound stones to pay those expensive ransoms when they were rushing to die in front of the little girl? "Duan Yu, you are the disciple of our Daybreak Sect's sect master, the #1 person in the sect's younger generation. How can you stand by and do nothing when you see your little junior brother being humiliated?" Uncle Master Bai turned his head and angrily rebuked Duan Yu with an "I'm very disappointed" expression. "No, Uncle Master Bai, this matter. Don't talk too much. Little girl, let me have a taste of your strength. You have to know that there's always someone better than you. You'll suffer losses in the future if you don't know the immensity of the heavens and earth." Boom! Aba landed a flying kick in front of Uncle Master Bai. Immediately, he stomped a pit on the ground, and cracks began to appear from the middle, spreading outwards like a spider web. Uncle Master Bai's pupils contracted. The strength of this kick was beyond his expectations. At the same time, it was also beyond everyone's expectations. It was the layman who watched the show, while the expert watched the knack. The three mentors from the Mystic Cultivator Association all sucked in a cold breath as they watched the rapidly moving little person in the field with bright eyes. After Aba's flying kick, he didn't give Uncle Master Bai a chance to react. He had already leaped up and swiftly arrived in front of him. Chapter 168. Uncle Master Bai had yet to recover from his shock. Aba's fist, which was covered in dense mystic energy, arrived in front of him with a whoosh. Bam! All of a sudden, Uncle Master Bai felt a sharp pain on the left side of his face. He could even hear a cracking sound coming from his cheekbone. Uncle Master Bai was struck by an old fist and was forced to take a few steps back. He bared his teeth and howled in pain. There were many gasps in the square, mixed with a few cries of surprise. Heavens! This child's seemingly delicate and light punch actually forced an Uncle Master from Daybreak Sect to retreat so many steps. The sharp-eyed spectators clearly saw Uncle Master Bai's left cheek swelling at a visible speed, turning into a big red bun. It was evident how powerful that punch was. Master! Xiao Tsung watched in shock as his master was defeated in disbelief. In his opinion, Master simply did not need to lift half a finger to easily crush a small bug like Xiao Mu to death. However, the reality was so disappointing. Not to mention Xiao Tsung, even Uncle Master by himself found it unbelievable. He could only say sheepishly, "Girl, I was too careless just now, so you succeeded. Don't be too pleased with yourself." Before he could finish speaking, he heard high-pitched screams from the crowd behind him. What was going on? Uncle Master Bai turned around and saw a small figure leaping high into the air. She was holding a pitch-black ferrule, which glowed with an inky light under the morning light. It was instantly eye-catching. The little girl was clearly in front of him just now, so when did she move behind him? Wasn't this speed a little too? Slap. The ferrule fell and ruthlessly smacked Uncle Master Bai's head. Duan Yu, who was standing on the side with his hands clasped together, silently twitched his mouth. Uncle Master Bai only felt a line of blood slide down his forehead. He dazedly reached out to touch it and found that it was sticky. Sure enough, blood was gushing out. His expression instantly turned sinister, and he angrily roared at Arbor, "Girl, you're courting death." How could he still maintain that old face of his? How could Uncle Master Bai embarrass himself in front of so many commoners and people from the Mystic Cultivator Association? Immediately, he pressed his palms together and poured all of his profound energy into his palms. His eyes were filled with anger as he charged towards Arbor. Arbor did not dodge. When he saw Uncle Master Bai charging towards him with all his might, his eyes lit up. With a stomp on the ground, the little fellow's tiny body shot towards Uncle Master Bai like an arrow released from a bow. Is this what you want? Instead of dodging, he faced the attack head-on. Everyone present held their breaths and stared at the two of them without blinking. Closer, closer, the distance was getting closer and closer. Uncle Master Bai suddenly felt immense pressure. He slowed down his pace. On the other hand, the little girl did not hesitate at all. Like a waterfall, she charged straight towards Uncle Master Bai. Xiao Tsung clenched his fists nervously, not realizing that his palms were covered in cold sweat. Whoosh! Uncle Master Bai bellowed. A thick mystic light exploded from his palms and surged toward the little girl. In the blink of an eye, the little girl's entire body was covered in dense mystic energy. It was as if she was immersed in the mystic light as she charged straight into Uncle Master Bai's mystic light. An earth-shattering boom erupted, shocking everyone in the plaza and causing them to retreat like a receding tide. I'll send the 2 chapters at 7:30 p.m. in advance today. Because the author is going to chop off his hands tonight. Mwahaha. Chapter 169. When the two collided, Uncle Master Bai felt a weight on his chest. He screamed in panic and was sent flying backward involuntarily. After the mystic light dissipated, the little girl stood there by herself. She apathetically dispersed the mystic energy covering her body and expressionlessly looked at a shallow human-shaped pit not far away. Uncle Master Bai was flung half a meter away by the collision of mystic energy. He was flung face down and sprawled in the shallow pit. Uncle Master Bai didn't know if it was because he didn't have the face or the strength, but he couldn't sit up for a long time. Just like that, he sprawled on the plaza all by himself. The surrounding crowd of onlookers whispered to each other, causing him to lie in the pit with a flushed face. He had never been so humiliated like today. It was all that D*MN girl's fault. Uncle Master Bai was so angry that he was about to die. Arbor raised her small hand and looked at the mystic energy covering it. Her mystic energy density was higher than normal people's and would greatly benefit her in battle. If she encountered an opponent of the same cultivation level as her mystic energy should be enough to crush the other party. Today's battle had given her a certain understanding of her own strength. Uncle Master Bai was a level 6 mystic cultivator, so it seemed that with the density of her mystic energy, it shouldn't be much of a problem for her to challenge a level 6 mystic cultivator. However, There was still a certain degree of difficulty in killing an opponent of a higher cultivation level in one strike. She needed to rely on other methods. Therefore, Uncle Master Bai, who was lying on the ground and pretending to be dead, in reality, his injuries weren't too serious, so why did he have to stay in the pit and not get up? Arbor pursed her lips. She turned around and grabbed Xiao Hu's small hand, walking toward the 3 mentors of the Mystic Cultivator Association. When the 3 mentors saw Arbor walking over, their cheeks flushed with excitement. Heavens! She was so young, but her strength was so valiant that she could defeat a level 6 Mystic Cultivator in minutes. The Mystic Cultivator Association must do their best to win her over. They absolutely couldn't let go of such a genius. Suddenly, Uncle Master Bai, who was sprawled on the ground, moved his fingers and flipped over. He looked at the back of the little girl who had humiliated him with a gloomy expression. Lying on the ground, he flicked something in the direction of Arbor. Bang! Before the item could even touch the corner of Arbor's clothes, it was swept away by a wave of energy. The pink sleeves rolled up, and the item that Uncle Master Bai had flicked gently landed on the fair hand that had emerged from the sleeves. The woman's extremely languid voice floated up in the plaza. Why are the people of Daybreak Sect becoming more and more incompetent? Throwing a level 5 profound energy bead at a little fellow's back, he's really shameless. Uncle Master Bai propped himself up and stood up. His expression was extremely unpleasant. This mystic energy bead was a rare treasure in his possession. As the name implied, a level 5 profound energy bead was a bead condensed by a level 5 mystic cultivator. Once mystic energy was injected into it and flung out, it would instantly detonate the mystic energy inside. In Uncle Master Bai's eyes, Xiao Mu, who had just dealt with his attack, was definitely an arrow at the end of its flight. It was impossible for her to dodge this level 5 profound energy bead's attack. However, his scheme was ruined by this D***MN woman before he could execute it. Uncle Master Bai looked like he was about to vomit blood. Murong Sun, you really like to meddle in other people's business. Tisk. The woman named Murong Sun floated to the ground and immediately crouched next to Arbor. She extended 2 fingers and pinched the little fellow's icy poker face without any explanation. Chapter 170. You're clearly so cute, so why do you have to be a little stoic? Smile. Her small face was so bouncy and comfortable to pinch. Murong Sun blinked at Arbor and suddenly guffawed. She hugged the child tightly and stood up, her fingers pinching the child's face non-stop. Until... slap. A crisp sound rang out. The child unceremoniously slapped away her claws. She expressionlessly glanced at her before her gaze landed on Murong Sun. Murong Sun was an extremely beautiful woman. Her facial features were quite gorgeous, and even though she wore light makeup, it still gave people a feeling of heavy ink and color. Also, cough cough. Arbor extended his small paws and pushed her body away in disdain. Why did he have to bury her small face in those magnificent breasts? She almost couldn't breathe. Ha ha. Murong Sun laughed heartily and patiently guided her. Little fellow, I think I like your looks very much and your aptitude is quite good. How about you join my holy water sect's first peak? Darling Xiao immediately shook her head so hard that her head was about to fall off. No, no, no. Don't be in such a hurry to refuse. Master's heart will ache. Darling Xiao. Haha. The 3 mentors from the Mystic Cultivator Association hastily surrounded her. One of them impatiently snatched Darling Xiao from Murong Sun's hands and shouted, Mentor Murong, you're wrong. You're a mentor representing the Mystic Cultivator Association today, so how can you privately accept students? If you want to accept students, you have to accept them for our association. Murong Sun raised her fist and sent that mentor who spoke rudely flying. They watched as that pitiful mentor was sent flying into the sky in an arc by Mentor Murong, whose violence was off the charts. The other 2 mentors, Arbor, darling, don't be scared. Murong Sun cheerfully patted the child's head. With Master here, those strange uncles can't get close to you. Be good. Master will protect you. Be good my A**s. Arbor bared his small, sharp teeth. He really wanted to bite her face. What kind of person was this? Why did she suddenly jump out and claim to be her master without any explanation? How could she give people room to refuse? Wait a minute. She was here today. For her proper business. My brother is coming to test. Oh my God, can you let me finish my sentence? Darling Chow, who suddenly felt that Murong Soon was hugging her and turning her around, didn't feel too good. Here, this level 5 mystic energy bead. Murong Soon stuffed an object the size of a jade bead into the child's hand. I'll give it to you to play with. Arbor narrowed his eyes and sent a trace of Xian energy into it. He flicked the Xian energy bead from his fingertips and sent it flying towards the dumbfounded Uncle Master Bai. Everyone, get out of the way! Duan Yu's folding fan fell to the ground with a clatter, and he only cared about dodging to the side with a shriek. Everyone retreated in all directions like the tide, leaving an empty space in the middle. Only Uncle Master Bai stood there in a daze. Bang! The profound energy orb exploded on Uncle Master Bai's body. Following Murong Soon's wild laughter, her lithe figure abruptly rose into the air with darling Chow in her arms. She narrowed her eyes and looked down at the chaos below her. That's right, that's right. You took your revenge on the spot. It's completely in line with Master's style. Ha 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 ha. Murong Soon guffawed non-stop. Darling Chow dumbly glanced at that fellow and lightly harumphed. In truth, she only wanted to test the power of this level 5 mystic energy bead. Chapter 171. This way the effect looked pretty good. There was only a shallow human-shaped pit on the ground, but it was destroyed by the level 5 mystic energy bead's destructive explosion. Uncle Master Bai's entire body sank into the human-shaped pit, and even the hem of his clothes could not be seen. Chow Mu patted Murong Soon, who refused to let go of her, and strongly requested to get down. Murong Soon pursed her lips and reluctantly let go of Chow Mu. Chow Mu immediately trotted to the side of the human-shaped pit and poked her head to take a look. Uncle Master Bai was struggling out of the pit with all his might, and his nose was covered in dust, causing him to cough violently. Chow Mu made a prompt decision and pulled out a repetition talisman from her sleeve. She flicked it at Uncle Master Bai, and it abruptly split open. The repetition talisman was an interesting talisman. It was not set so strictly to be immune to opponents one level higher than the user, unless the opponent was much, much stronger than the user. However, an unlucky person like Uncle Master Bai, whose cultivation was about the same as hers, could still be hit by it. Chow Mu crouched beside the pit and watched Uncle Master Bai struggle to get up from the pit. He repeated the action of struggling to lift his head and spit out dust. Blah! Uncle Master Bai raised his afro head, and his face was smeared with soot. Blah! Why did he spit again? Blah! Something was wrong. After spitting out dust 3 times in a row, Uncle Master Bai belatedly realized that he seemed to be freaking repeating this action. His expression turned into horror, but unfortunately, his actions were still repeating the same action. Ah, how could this repetition setting be so perfect? She might not have caught Uncle Master Bai's action if she was a second slower or a second faster. Uncle Master Bai, what are you doing? Hurry up and crawl out. How could the Daybreak Sect disciples know that Uncle Master Bai had already been hit? They all surrounded the pit and watched in astonishment as their Uncle Master Bai struggled in the pit. What the heck? Although this pit was not shallow, it should not be enough to trap Uncle Master Bai inside. Uncle Master Bai raised his afro head, tears about to fall from his eyes. Did he not want to crawl out of the pit? He was powerless. These D***MN brats. Hurry up and dig him out of the pit. Uncle Master Bai's hair, which had been perfectly fine, was now hanging limply on his head. His image had never been as ugly as it was today. The little fellow joined in the fun and watched for a while. Then he got up and walked out with a serious face. He didn't show any emotions. Compared to the twisted expressions on everyone's faces, the little girl's face was too calm. Duan Yu stole glances at the little fellow from time to time. Our dear Chiao Mu bounced to Chiao Hu's side and pulled his hand, walking to Morong Sun. "Guide me." "Little girl, do you want to join our Mystic Cultivator Association? The benefits are good, the treatment is good, and you can get a basic survival package every month." Asterisk whoosh. Asterisk that member of the Mystic Cultivator Association who was licking his lips to seduce the girl had just finished speaking when Morong Sun flung him away, perfectly drawing a parabola in the air. "Little fellow, don't listen to his nonsense. The treatment he received was simply not enough. Our holy water sect's first peak will always welcome you with open doors." "Guide big brother. Did you guys get the wrong person? I'm only a chaperone today." Okay. The last mentor from the Mystic Cultivator Association nodded vigorously. "I'll take your brother's place." Asterisk bang. Asterisk the bandit Morong Sun slashed the back of his neck, and that pitiful mentor collapsed with 2 streams of hot tears streaming down his face. "President, this subordinate can't help you anymore." "I'll do it." Morong Sun cheerfully reached out to take Chiao Hu. Chapter 172. Chiao Hu was a bit nervous and clenched his fists uneasily. "Don't be nervous." Although Morong Sun looked unreliable, she was actually very experienced in guiding mentors. She had successfully guided more than 800 mystic cultivators, if not 1,000. Morong Sun sat there and put away a rare smile on her face, a bit of seriousness showing in her eyes. She gripped Chiao Hu's arm and a strand of mystic energy slowly seeped into Chiao Hu's wrist. Chiao Hu only felt a warm aura start circulating inside his body. It was very comfortable as it circled around him, and his nervousness slowly disappeared without a trace. He felt like he was soaking in a hot spring, and his warm body gradually relaxed. Chiao Hu opened his mouth slightly and closed his eyes with a silly smile. Chao Tsung, who was standing at the edge of the pit, had his eyes fixed on the pit. When he saw this, a mocking smile appeared on his face once again. "Little trash, you still want to become a mystic cultivator? You won't be able to in this lifetime." Chao Tsung held his simply bandaged arm and harumphed while enduring the pain. His forehead was drenched in cold sweat. After that, he left the edge of the pit. He didn't want to take another look at his master who had embarrassed him. How useless. He couldn't even handle a 7-year-old child. He had actually worshipped such a useless master, and even his own face had been lost along with it. In the end, Uncle Master Bai was dragged out of the pit by 2 other Daybreak sect disciples. "Why waste your energy and time on this little trash?" Chao Tsung crossed his arms and stood to the side. He did not dare to loudly rebuke in fear of being beaten up by Chiao Mu, so he only quietly grumbled. The mentor from the Mystic Cultivator Association, who was flung away by Morong Sun but ran back on his own, looked down at Chao Tsung and frowned. He was so young, but his words were so harsh. It truly made people unable to have a good impression of him. "Little brother, you're wrong to say that." The mentor looked up in Morong Sun's direction, faint admiration surfacing on her face. Although this mentor Morong was unreliable most of the time, however, Mentor Morong is a very powerful mentor. As long as a child is guided by her, no one will fail to trigger their mystic meridians. Instructor Morong is a spirit channeling instructor who has a 100% success rate in opening his profound meridians. Chao Tsung's gaze froze as he secretly clenched his fists. "No, that's impossible." In the entire Kwoto village's Chao clan, he was the only true genius who successfully triggered his mystic meridians at the age of 9. Afterward, he was chosen by Daybreak Sect and was directly taken away to become Daybreak Sect's disciple, bringing honor and glory to his family. That Chiao who, for 3 years in a row, had entered the city every year to find a guide to trigger his meridians, but not once had he succeeded. He was the joke of old Chiao's family. He was a good-for-nothing. Chiao whose hand suddenly emitted a faint luster, and the dignified child suddenly opened his eyes, which were filled with great surprise. It's a success. The other onlookers in the square all looked envious. Heavens, a 10-year-old mystic cultivator was born in front of them again. I really want my children to do the same. The parents in the square all lowered their heads and looked at their children with hope. After 3 years of failure, the 10-year-old Xiao Hu finally succeeded in triggering his mystic meridians and officially stepped onto the path of a mystic cultivator. Thank you, Mentor Morong. Xiao Hu turned around and respectfully bowed to Morong Soon with a humble smile on his face. Chapter 173. Morong Soon's lips turned up in a faint smile. Aya, child, your mystic meridians are very good. You have a bright future. If it weren't for the fact that my sect doesn't accept male disciples, I really would have taken you in. He was praised by Mentor Morong. A bashful smile appeared on Xiao Hu's face, and he respectfully bowed to Morong Soon again. Thank you for your help, Mentor Morong. Morong Soon waved her hand. As the mentor of the Mystic Cultivator Association, helping young boys and girls become mystic cultivators is my duty. Mentor, please help our child trigger her mystic meridians. Mentor, please help my child. The crowd that surged forward with a whoosh nearly drowned Morong Soon in the sea of people. Xiao Mu blended into the crowd and pattered toward several parents who were watching. She covered her mouth with her hand and secretly said to them, "Why aren't you going? That Mentor Morong in front is a mentor who can help the child trigger her mystic meridians with a 100% success rate. I only told you guys. Heavens. Big girl, let's go find Mentor Morong quickly." Around Morong Soon, the crowd was currently gathering at a terrifying speed, trapping her within. Hey child. A certain mentor, who was drowned in the sea of people, was exasperated as she watched the little girl run further and further away from her with small steps. The child even expressionlessly waved her hand at her through the crowd and made a farewell gesture. Morong Soon snorted with laughter, and her enchanting eyes curved up slightly. What an interesting child. Did you think you could run away? Since Master has taken a fancy to you, you're masters for the rest of your life. Sister, I really succeeded. I became a mystic cultivator. Xiao Hu only regained his wits after running a short distance behind Arbor and exclaimed excitedly. Even now, it still felt like a dream. He really didn't expect that he would be able to step into the ranks of mystic cultivators one day. The disappointment every year already made him a bit afraid to try again. It could be seen that failure was not scary. The scariest thing was being timid and not daring to accept failure again and again. Abba put his hands behind his back and suddenly turned around. At that moment, Xiao Hu caught a glimpse of a smile on his sister's frosty face. His sister's eyes were really beautiful. When she smiled, it was as if the stars were blooming in front of her eyes, the trees were blooming, and the spring breeze was caressing her face. It was incredibly warm. It was no longer that stoic face, no longer expressionless. His sister was the most beautiful girl he had ever seen in his life. Brother, you're the best. Arbor stretched out a small fist and gently punched Xiao Hu's shoulder. He raised his hand and pointed in the direction of Pear Blossom Alley. Let's go home. Xiao Hu nodded vigorously. Let's go home, little sister. Hand in hand, the two siblings ran toward Pear Blossom Alley. They completely forgot about Xiao Tsung, who was clenching his fists and pulling a long face. They didn't even look at him. The little girl smiled at the student-looking idiot. The folding fan in Duan Yu's hand uncontrollably fell to the ground again, and his eyes were engraved with that blossoming smile. It turned out that she could also smile so warmly, beautifully, and vividly. However, you habitually wrap yourself in layer after layer of icy spikes and don't allow others to approach you or come out by yourself. Once you get close, perhaps you'll be pierced to pieces and drenched in blood. What kind of you is the real you? Duan Yu couldn't help but feel melancholy. Chapter 174. Father, Father. Xiao Hu shouted loudly as he ran through the door with a face full of joy. Abba's lips curled up slightly as he watched the young boy excitedly rush through the door. The fragrance of flowers wafted through the courtyard. Mother sat in front of the stone table with little sister in her arms. She turned around and revealed a joyful smile at the two siblings. Father and second uncle put down the teacups in their hands and stood up to look at them. This life, it was completely different from before. She returned from hell and stepped on corpses and blood all over the place. All she asked for was a peaceful life and the well-being of her family. Ha 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 ha! My son has become a mystic cultivator. Second uncle laughed heartily. Little fellow, you're amazing. Qiao Zhongbang rubbed Qiao Hu's little head with a smile. You're a good child. Don't slack off in the future and work hard. Our Qiao family's hopes are all placed on children of your generation. Mother happily put down Xiao Lin in her hands. Second brother, I'm so happy today. Sit and chat for a while, I'll go take a look in the kitchen. Let's add more dishes tonight and have a lively meal with the whole family. Sister, celebrate. Good peaches. Xiao Lin bounced to her side and tugged at the corner of her skirt. Abba couldn't help but laugh. He lowered his head and rubbed her little head before picking her up. There aren't any peaches, but there are other good ones. Do you want them? **** dividing line. Foodies dividing line *** City Lord's Estate Main Hall. Gu Qingfeng raised the wine cup in his hand and smiled at everyone. Today, the Mystic Cultivator Association and the three sects are gathered here. This city lord will first toast everyone. At this special time, the wine and dishes are meager. Please forgive me for not entertaining everyone. City lord is too courteous. A middle-aged man sitting in the heavenly Dao sect seat raised his wine cup and nodded lightly at Gu Qingfeng. Now that zombified monsters have appeared everywhere, the citizens of every town are having a hard time. We have dishes, meat, and wine, and this is already an extremely luxurious enjoyment, a guide from the Mystic Cultivator Association said with a sigh. City Lord Gu Qingfeng nodded and raised his cup again. Thank you, guides, for helping the children in the city awaken their mystic meridians. He especially wanted to thank Peak Master Morong. He successively helped 4 youths successfully trigger their profound meridians. If it weren't for the fact that it was impossible for Morong Sun to have more than 4 people trigger their meridians at once, she really wanted her to help all the children under 15 in the city trigger their meridians. Mentor Morong is truly someone we admire. The 3 mentors of the Mystic Cultivator Association also cast respectful gazes at Morong Sun. Morong Sun could only help 4 students awaken their mystic meridians at most. Afterwards, she could not help the children for at least 15 days. But even so, this kind of mystic awakening success rate and this kind of terrifying speed at creating mystic cultivators were very admirable. Morong Sun swirled the wine cup in her hand and smiled at the city lord. The city lord is very grateful to me? Of course. Gu Qingfeng nodded respectfully at Morong Sun. Peak Master Morong is an out-and-out mentor. Who wouldn't revere and be grateful to you? If that's the case, help me find someone. Morong Sun casually tossed a rolled-up portrait to Gu Qingfeng. The person in the portrait is my disciple. Don't be fooled by her stoic face, icy and unapproachable. However, her natural disposition is very mischievous. If I wasn't paying attention, she would run off without a trace. I'll have to trouble the city lord to help me find her. Everyone. Chapter 175. Gu Qingfeng was startled when he opened the painting and looked up at Morong Sun. Morong Sun was leaning seductively against the round-backed chair with her slender legs crossed. She raised her wrist at the stunned Gu Qingfeng and raised her lips to toast him from afar. Her misty eyes seemed to have the effect of starlight. It wasn't the wine that intoxicated her, but herself. Morong Sun, you evildoer. Your appearance makes it hard for all the men present to look away. A disciple that Peak Master Morong values so highly must be extraordinary. How about you let us take a look? The middle-aged man from Heavenly Dao sect asked with a smile. Gu Qingfeng asked Murong Sun for her opinion. After seeing her nod, he had his subordinate present the painting to Heavenly Tao Sect. Murong Sun absent-mindedly sipped her wine and said aloofly, "My disciple is a natural beauty with an exceptional constitution, so there's no harm in letting you see her." Heavenly Tao Sect's Guan Yongnian was startled when he opened the painting. Murong Sun raised her brows, an interesting smile on her lips. Could it be that Hall Master Guan also knows my disciple? Guan Yongnian closed the painting and nodded. My disciple brought a portrait the day before yesterday and said that she found a 7-year-old mystic cultivator in a small place like Kwoto Village. Our Heavenly Tao Sect is also very interested in recruiting this kind of talent. Unfortunately, the zombie transformation happened too suddenly and everything happened too abruptly, so before we could find that child. A 7-year-old mystic cultivator. A dark-skinned woman from Daybreak Sect with a rigid face narrowed her eyes and left her seat to walk to Hall Master Guan's side. She picked up the portrait in front of Hall Master Guan and glanced at it. She snorted and said, "It really is her." A 7-year-old mystic cultivator was rare these days. No, it should be said that it was extremely rare. In theory, every child could activate their mystic meridians when they turned 7, but there were only a few who could successfully activate their mystic meridians. When Lu Yumei heard that Murong Sun's disciple was a 7-year-old mystic cultivator, she felt a bit disgusted. It was indeed the stoic child that her disciple spoke of. "Murong Sun, how dare you? You wicked disciple is so young, but you're already so vicious, and heartless." Lu Yumei glared at Peak Master Murong. "Do you know what she did? Not only did she injure my junior brother Bai, you even heavily injured several of my Daybreak Sect's disciples. What is even more unforgivable is that you killed my disciple, Li Xiang." "Murong Sun, what else do you have to say? The 3 sects were originally of the same breath and branch, each mind their own business. You connived with your disciple to do such an evil thing. Shouldn't you give our Daybreak Sect an explanation?" Gu Qingfeng's smile froze on his face. He only wanted to hold a small banquet to welcome the people from the 3 sects. Why are you arguing with each other again? Could he, the city lord, live a comfortable life? Murong Sun sipped the wine in her cup, and her slender eyes lifted slightly. Her breath reeked of alcohol, and she looked at Lu Yumei teasingly. "Hall Master Lu, what kind of explanation do you want?" "Oh my God. Peak Master Murong, your current appearance is truly a living evildoer." Even Lu Yumei, who was a woman, could not help but blush. She nearly forgot what she was questioning Murong Sun about. "Murong Sun, as the Peak Master of the Holy Water Sect, you should carry out the mission of the 3 sects being as one. Hand over your evil disciple. Let our Daybreak Sect deal with her." Murong Sun's tipsy eyes were half-lidded, and a mesmerizing curve curved her eyes. Her thin lips parted in a teasing smile. "Don't tell me that this Peak Master still hasn't found my little disciple. Even if I did find her, TSK, how could this Peak Master's beloved disciple be handed over to you to deal with?" Chapter 176. Murong Sun. You. Lu Yomei's darkened face turned green from anger, and she swept the wine cup in her hand away without any explanation. Murong Sun narrowed her half-drunk eyes and shook her finger at Lu Yumei with a smile. "You're angry out of humiliation, angry out of humiliation. Peak Master Murong." Gu Qingfeng jumped up from his stool and stretched out his hand, nervously looking at the wine cup flying toward Murong Sun. Murong Sun raised her cup with a smile and brushed her sleeves in a carefree manner. She clinked her cup against the wine cup flying toward her, and mystic energy seeped out of her fingertip as she lightly flicked it. That wine cup flew back at lightning speed and crashed toward Lu Yumei, who had an extremely unsightly expression, with an extremely tyrannical force. Lu Yumei took a deep breath and stretched out her hand to catch the wine cup. Suddenly, the entire wine cup shattered with a bang several inches away from her hand, turning into fine powder that instantly dissipated before her eyes. Everyone was flabbergasted. Lu Yomei's eyes even bulged out. Her fingers were still holding the cup, and Lu Yomei's mouth was slightly agape. She froze on the spot and did not know what to say. Just how strong was Murong Sun? Only then would he be able to control this surge of profound energy as he pleased, and manipulate it as he pleased. Murong Sun propped herself up on the table with one hand and crossed her legs. She raised the wine pot and drank a mouthful with a grin. She laughed loudly and said, "Hall Master Lu, it's impolite not to reciprocate. You should also receive a pot of mine." Her slender leg lightly lifted and kicked, and the wine pot shot toward Lu Yomei's head at a terrifying speed. "Peak Master Murong, my junior sister Lu has offended you. Please be magnanimous." A man sitting next to Lu Yumei hastily jumped up and blocked in front of Lu Yumei with a solemn expression. He circulated all the mystic energy in his body and barely caught the wine pot. His throat instantly tasted sweet, and he nearly could not hold back the mouthful of blood that was about to rush out. "Senior brother." Lu Yumei was startled and hastily reached out to support the man who stumbled back several steps. Murong Sun chuckled and put down her slender legs. She flicked her sleeves and stood up. "Thank you for your hospitality today, City Lord. This Peak Master still has important matters to attend to, so I'll take my leave first." Peak Master Murong, about the 3 sects disciples heading to Qinghe Town for training. Guan Yongnian of the Heavenly Tao sect hastily stood up and asked. Murong Sun slowly turned her head to look at him. "Of course it will be held as scheduled. But according to our investigations, Qinghe Town has been completely occupied by zombified monsters. I'm afraid the disciples of the 3 sects won't be able to deal with them. How can one become a talent without training?" "Hall Master Guan, do you want to cultivate a little flower in a greenhouse, or do you want to polish an ancient sword?" Murong Sun smiled faintly and walked outside with a flick of her sleeve. "It's fine if your 2 sects disciples don't have the guts to go. My holy water sect will keep the appointment as scheduled and carry out this life and death experience." Murong Sun's figure disappeared into the distance, only leaving behind a faint voice that lingered in everyone's ears. Peak Master Murong's words are very reasonable. Although Qinghe Town is fraught with danger, it can indeed temper the sect's disciples. Guan Yongnian of the Heavenly Tao sect nodded and said, "Since that's the case, my Heavenly Tao sect will also participate in this experience as scheduled." "Hall Master." The person next to Guan Yongnian was startled and wanted to speak. However, Guan Yongnian waved his hand to stop him. "However, there are many zombified monsters gathered in Qinghe Town. I'm afraid the 21 disciples of the 3 sects won't be enough to deal with them. Therefore, I would like to request the City Lord to issue a mission order and gather all the mystic cultivators, body cultivators, and superhumans in the city to head to Qinghe Town together." Gu Qingfeng lightly bumped his fist. "This City Lord has the same intention." Chapter 177. The next day, the City Lord's estate issued a Level 3 mission call. They were to gather all the mystic cultivators, body cultivators, and superhumans in the city to assist the disciples of the 3 sects in gathering food and supplies in Qinghe Town. It was said that there was a large granary in Qinghe Town with an abundance of food, enough to match 3 months of Shijiao City's food reserves. Qinghe Town? Aber vaguely remembered this place. On the 2nd day after the zombie outbreak, all the residents in Qinghe Town died, and it became the zombies' base of operations. She remembered that in her previous life, the 3 sects had gathered a group of people to head to Qinghe Town to clear out the zombies and gather supplies. Unfortunately, all the disciples of the 3 sects died in that town, except for the Holy Water sect's people who managed to escape. As mystic cultivators, every time the City Lord's estate issued a special mission, the mission's contents would be directly transmitted to the mystic cultivators to show their importance. Abba was no exception. She received the City Lord's estate summons early in the morning. She was flipping through the mission notice when Steward Chong Zai jogged inside and hastily bowed. "Miss, the City Lord is here." Abba pressed down the notice and looked up at the steward. She nodded lightly. "Understood. Please ask City Lord Gu to wait for a moment. I'll be right there." Chongzai humbly agreed, then hurriedly turned around and hurriedly ran to the front hall to receive the city lord. Aba tidied up her clothes before heading to the front hall. As soon as she entered the door, she saw a woman in a violet dress leaning against the side of the window. She slowly turned around, and she was extremely enchanting and charming. She tilted her head and smiled as she waved her hand at her. "Disciple, Master has come to disturb you." Murong Soon's smile seemed to have been frozen in time for an instant. Under the shroud of the morning sun, it emitted a faint glow. However, after so many years, she would still remember her master's devilish appearance at this moment, waving at her while leaning against the window. No matter how quickly time passed and the past was like mayflies, she would not forget a single thing that she should remember. It was all stored in the deepest recesses of her memory. At this moment, Xiao Mu looked at this person in bewilderment and reflexively jumped back to avoid her slender fingers. "Why are you here?" Gu Qingfeng smiled bitterly. In reality, when he rushed out this morning and saw Murong Soon appearing behind him like a ghost, he also wanted to be like Xiao Mu and ask Mentor Murong, "Why are you here?" "Disciple, you ruthlessly tricked Master yesterday, so Master naturally came early in the morning to have a good talk with you about life." Murong Soon reached out, intending to pinch the little fellow's cheeks. Aba jumped back again and silently ignored the wry smile hanging on Murong Soon's lips. Gu Qingfeng coughed, trying to attract the attention of the master and disciple. The two of them turned their heads and glared at him at the same time, with a look that said, "What nonsense do you want to say? Hurry up and say it." Inexplicably, he felt that this pair of master and disciple even had the same actions and expressions. What was going on? Gu Qingfeng coughed dryly. Miss Chow, I wonder if you've received the mission summons from the City Lord's mansion. If Miss Chow completes this level 3 mission, then for the next year's residence rights will be. You want to talk about this? Auber inched closer to the door. I know. You just need to notify me when the specific departure time is set. Even if the City Lord did not come today, she still decided to go to the Mission Distribution Center to sign up. Chapter 178. This was because she also wanted to go there and experience it. After all, ever since she was reborn, she hadn't officially experienced anything other than that accident at Hulun Mountain. She could only obtain more experience from actual combat and strengthen herself through continuous training. She never dared to slow down because she didn't have the right to do so. Moreover, she also wanted to take a look at how unconquerable Qinghe Town's zombie colony, which caused people to turn pale at the mere mention of it in her previous life, was. Do as you wish, City Lord. Aba turned her head and slipped past Murong Soon's hand, practically dashing out the door. City Lord Gu looked up, and his lips involuntarily twitched. The child, who had always been calm and composed, actually looked like she was running away in a sorry state. Murong Soon burst out in laughter. She took a wrong step and floated into the air, following the child as she said, "Little thing, how about you make a bet with Master? If you can trap Master for 15 minutes today, you win, and Master won't cause trouble for you in the future." Having a spirit floating behind her the whole way was so beautiful that she couldn't bear to look back. Aba dashed out of Pear Blossom Alley. When she turned a corner, she happened to bump into Duan Yu, who was walking toward her with a grin. She extended her hand to greet him. "Jojo, what a coincidence." "Hello." The youth looked dumbfoundedly at Mentor Murong, who floated past him. Xiao Mu felt like she might have used up all the strength she had in the first half of her life. She had already placed 3 speed talismans on herself to keep up with her running speed. Then she looked back. Holy *T, the spirit behind her was still following her with a grin. Her expression didn't change at all. Aba dashed toward the east of the city. She felt like she had run thousands of miles for 4 hours, but she still couldn't shake off that fellow behind her. "Little one, don't blame Master for not reminding you. The direction you're running in is getting closer to the water area. That area is especially spacious, so you can't escape." A certain master drifted with Xiao Mu the whole way. Her face wasn't red, and she wasn't out of breath. "Oh, your sister. This body of water leads to the sea gazing. It can be considered a branch of the sea gazing. Don't be fooled by how calm the water is right now. At noon, the high tide is 10%, but the current is very turbulent. A wide body of water appeared in Arba's eyes. At this moment, she also stopped running and turned to look at the spirit behind her. Why aren't you running anymore? Murong Sun stopped in midair and looked at Xiao Mu with a smile. You have to keep your word. Arba suddenly said this to her before tossing out a section of the spirit binding rope from his pocket and swiftly wrapping it around Murong Sun's wrist. With a tug and a pull, the child directly dragged the floating Murong Sun over and pattered to a nearby tree. She tied Murong Sun to the tree several times and tightly tied her up. Murong Sun's eyebrows twitched, and she looked at her youngest disciple in exasperation. Disciple, you shouldn't do this. If you tie me up here, the tide will rise in less than a quarter of an hour. If a wave comes, I will drown. Thud thud thud. The little fellow let go and threw Murong Sun aside before madly sprinting away. As he ran, he thought, the spirit binding rope is very powerful, so it shouldn't be a problem to bind Murong Sun for a quarter of an hour. Several minutes later, Xiao Mu paused in her steps and glanced back in distress. Murong Sun said the tide was about to rise. She was so strong, so she shouldn't drown. However, the spirit binding rope always tied people up and couldn't be freed. Arba hesitated for a few seconds before deciding to run back to take a look. However, when he reached that place, he couldn't help but be dumbfounded. He didn't see Murong Sun, but he saw Duan Yu's pig-like teammates standing in the water and anxiously calling out to him, Jojo, Jojo, Arba, F***ck me, you're tied up by the spirit binding rope again. Chapter 179. Arba waded over and came to Duan Yu's side. Why were you tied up here? Where's Murong Sun? Arba looked at Duan Yu in bewilderment. Her small hand touched the rope binding Duan Yu's wrists and gently pulled. It was quite funny. After Mentor Murong escaped from the spirit binding rope, she tied Duan Yu to a tree. This was truly heaven's will. It was Duan Yu's turn to be unlucky. Duan Yu, don't think I can't tell that you're gloating just because your face is stoic. After Arba untied Duan Yu's spirit binding rope, he quickly pulled Xiao Mu and ran toward the shore. The water level rose very quickly. In just a few minutes, the water had nearly crossed Arba's shoulders. However, due to the high terrain in the city, the water could not rush into the city no matter how high it rose. The two could only swim to the shore after less than a minute. What are you doing with Peak Master Murong? Duan Yu asked in bewilderment as he paddled. I already explained to her that we're not friends. She's crazy and insisted on keeping me here as a hostage. She said you would come back to save me. But when I was tied up in the water by her, you didn't even know I was here. That's right. If I knew you were here, I wouldn't have bothered to come back. Arba's mouth twitched, and she kept paddling her small arms toward the shore. Why do you have so much to say? We should hurry to the shore. For some reason, she felt a chill on her back. That deranged mentor probably would not let them off so easily. Don't you think the sound of the water is getting louder? Duan Yu swam forward and kept looking back to pull Arba. The little girl's arms and legs were small, so she definitely could not swim as fast as him. Arba also heard the sound of splashing water. It seemed to be right next to their ears. The two of them turned their heads to take a look, and their faces were immediately filled with shock. Their eyes, one big and one small, almost popped out of their sockets. F***ck, the sudden wave behind them was too scary. It swept up about 4 to 5 meters high and splashed water everywhere. *T, where did such a huge wave come from? Roar. Duan Yu only felt a huge wave rolling over him from behind. When it crashed down on his head, it freaking stunned him. With such a huge wave crashing down, Duan Yu was instantly swept into the water. Arba's eyebrows twitched, and he stomped on Duan Yu's corpse that had been swept into the water by the waves. He swiftly paddled a few times and tried his best to struggle up into the air. The profound energy around his body floated and quickly spread out. Originally, he thought that once he circulated his profound energy, it would be an easy task to break free from the water. However, Aber quickly discovered that his profound energy seemed to be suppressed. That was because there was an even higher level indescribable power that was suppressing her profound energy. Instructor Murong, you're here, Aber said with certainty. Although Murong Soon appeared to have left after she returned, the current situation made her very certain that Murong Soon was definitely hiding in the shadows and heartlessly watching them make a fool of themselves. The water suddenly parted to the sides, creating a shallow path. Murong Soon came out from behind the huge wave and lightly tapped the water's surface with her toes. She walked on the water like it was flat ground and cheerfully arrived in front of them. However, Aba's gaze was fixed on her left hand. There was a nimble current of water circling around the back of Instructor Murong's hand. It slithered and spun endlessly like a living being. Chapter 180. What is that? Xiao Mu's gaze was immediately attracted by the water flowing around Murong Soon's hand. This is a water spirit. Murong Soon waved her hand, and the giant wave behind her rose again. Duan Yu's head just happened to pop out of the water. However, the giant wave crashed down again and slapped him back into the water. Aber, she looked quite miserable. There are 5 spirits in this world, and this is only one of them. Murong Soon walked over on the water with a grin on her face. When your cultivation reaches a certain height, you can gradually sense a trace of the origin power in this world. At that time, I'll be able to comprehend this trace of origin energy. Of course, it's very difficult to comprehend the 5 spirits on our Seekong planet. Moreover, it would be suppressed. It could even be said that it was basically impossible to comprehend the origin of the 5 spirits on this godforsaken Seekong planet. However, the little fellow did not need to understand this clearly yet. Aber was pensive. She looked into the distance, and her thoughts also drifted away. She remembered that person. He could control lightning and fire. That pair of dark green jade-like eyes flickered with a demonic light under the lightning and fire's illumination. So these were the 5 spirits, the origin power of this world. They could completely suppress mystic energy. The difference between him and her was like heaven and earth. What if they met again? Would she become someone else's pet again? Would she be raised and fed? What a terrifying fate! Aber shuddered, feeling a chill in her heart. A warm, thin blanket wrapped around her small body. Murong Soon reached out and picked her up. Let's go home. Don't catch a cold. Aber's icy hand pressed against Murong Soon's cheek, and she earnestly looked at her. Master, will I be as strong as you in the future? This child's eyes were as black as 2 flawless gems, extremely beautiful. Murong Soon was startled, and her heart almost melted with this soft call. She laughed loudly and carried Aber away, leaving behind only a faint voice. My good disciple, with your aptitude, you'll definitely surpass Master in a few years. At that time, you must remember to protect Master. Duan Yu finally managed to climb ashore. Looking at the empty waters in front of him, he felt as if 10,000 curses were running through his heart. Have the 2 of you completely forgotten about me? Is it really okay for you guys to be like this? One day later, all the carriages heading to Qinghe town gathered at the plaza in the center of the town. The disciples of the 3 sects each took their own spot, 7 in a team. The mystic cultivators and body cultivators gathered by the city lord's estate were gathered together. The holy water sect's side was the liveliest in the plaza. The 7 celestial maidens surrounded a little stoic and chattered incessantly, fighting for a hug. Little junior sister, I'm your second peak senior sister Yu Gui. I am Li Ling from the 3rd summit. Junior sister, ignore them. The 2 of us are your true senior sisters. You don't have to care about the others. Jojo, let's form a team later, Bo. Before Duan Yu could approach the 7 celestial maidens' encirclement, he was suddenly forced back by two cold swords. Senior Sisters of the Holy Water Sect. I'm Duan Yu from the Daybreak Sect. I'm friends with your little junior sister. We're together, together. Duan Yu pointed at himself and Aber with a chuckle. Little junior sister, this is your friend? Yes, yes, we're together, together. Duan Yu forced his way through the crowd and ran to Aba's side in high spirits. You're tuning in to the Narrate and Escape YouTube channel. Don't forget to subscribe and join us on this journey to catch the most captivating stories.